On the way back, with Shan Songxing as a powerful bodyguard, there were naturally no more incidents. In just 2 days, they approached the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. During these 2 days, Mu Chen, with the help of the pill from Shan Songxing, not only healed the injuries caused by the corruption of the blood evil power, but also improved his spiritual energy. Although the blood evil power was terrifying, it was still a form of strength. During his battle with Bai Xian, Mu Chen had consumed most of the blood evil power, but there was still some residue left. He absorbed this residue, which brought him some benefits. Mu Chen was also pleased with his recovery and felt more grateful towards Shan Songxing. If not for his pill, it would have taken several more days for his injuries to heal. Outside North Song City, near the outer area of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, several shadows appeared on a mountain peak. It was Mu Chen and the others, returning to the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Senior Shen Songxing, are you not returning to the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy with us? Mu Chen asked as he looked at the young man in black ahead of him. Shen Songxing smiled and shook his head. I've accepted the Demon Dragon Child's bounty task. Since the task is not yet complete, I'll hold off on returning for now. Guoxiong clicked his tongue secretly. As expected of the top person on the heavenly ranking of our Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, daring to hunt down the vicious Demon Dragon Child. Probably, only he has the guts to do so in the whole academy. Then let's part here. I hope you can successfully complete your task. By the way, in a month, it will be our Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy's annual hunting war. Will you not be coming back to participate? Su Xian smiled. The hunting war, huh? Shen Songxing squinted slightly. His gaze seemed to become more focused at that moment. This year's hunting war seems especially difficult. According to the information I've received, the final defender will likely be the 3 generals of our Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy's execution hall, Su Xian said. The 3 generals of the execution hall? Those 3 guys? They will take action this year? Shen Songxing was momentarily stunned. Then a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. Su Xian nodded helplessly. Those 3 are the top figures from the last batch of our Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Although they have graduated, they still remain at the execution hall for training. Their strength is so great that even some of the execution hall's protectors are no match for them. So if you don't come back, we might lose the hunting war this year. Shen Songxing furrowed his brows. I didn't expect even they would take action. In that case, I'll try my best to come back. Those 3 are indeed not easy to deal with. I'd like to face them and see for myself. Su Xian smiled and nodded. Since you're willing to return, with Li Xintong joining, we might stand a chance in the final round. Shen Songxing smiled, exchanged a few more words, then bid farewell. With a flicker, he vanished into the horizon. Heh, if Senior Shen Songxing can come back for the hunting war, our chances of winning will increase, Guoxiong said as he watched Shen Songxing leave. Hunting war? What's that? Mu Chen asked, confused. The hunting war is our Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy's annual grand event, open to almost all students. It will be an intense battle, and we don't know how many dark horses will appear this time. Those who were previously unnoticed, Su Xian said with a slight smile. Every year's hunting war results in significant changes on the heavenly ranking. The dark horses, who were once unknown, will reveal themselves and make a name for themselves, Su Xian continued. Don't think that the most powerful figures of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy are all on the heavenly ranking. Some are very good at hiding their strength. Mu Chen nodded, realizing that with so many students in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, one heavenly ranking couldn't possibly cover all of them. There were certainly many powerful figures hidden outside the rankings. Shen Songxing was a dark horse back then. Before that, he had little fame in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. But during that year's hunting war, he skyrocketed, defeating the previous top-ranked person and even beating the final defender of the hunting war. From then on, his reputation was known throughout the academy. To this day, no one has been able to shake his position at the top of the heavenly ranking, Guoxiong said, a look of admiration in his eyes. Mu Chen nodded slightly. What is the Guardian? Mu Chen asked helplessly again, realizing that he seemed to know nothing about the major affairs of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Every hunting war has guardians. They are not students but come from the punishment hall of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, also known as Xingdian. Most of the people in Xingdian are senior students who graduated from the academy. They did not want to leave after graduation, so they stayed to continue their cultivation. Their strength is quite formidable. Su Xian spoke softly, and for this hunting war, it is said that Xingdian has sent 3 guardians. These are the 3 generals of Xingdian. The 3 generals of Xingdian? Mu Chen was taken aback and murmured to himself, "Hee, these 3 were once extremely prominent figures at the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. They have great fame within Xingdian. It is said that a year ago, they teamed up to eliminate the number 1 target on the bounty list, Mo Xingtian." Mo Xingtian? Mu Chen was finally moved. Mo Xingtian was the super ruthless person who ranked first on the bounty list of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. It is said that he was the youngest elder in the history of the Dragon Demon Palace, with demon-like talent and terrifying strength, even stronger than the demon dragon child they had encountered before. The fact that these 3 so-called 3 generals were able to eliminate him showed that their strength was indeed incredibly terrifying. So what was the final result? Mu Chen couldn't help but ask. The result. Su Xian smiled helplessly and said, Mo Xingtian is not that easy to deal with. Even though the 3 generals of Xingdian acted together, they still returned empty-handed in the end. But honestly, being able to retreat unharmed from Mo Xingtian's hands was already an impressive feat. Mu Chen nodded slightly. Just the demon dragon child was already very powerful. The number 1 Mo Xingtian was obviously even more terrifying. If he could be easily eliminated, he wouldn't deserve that ranking. In the hunting war, these 3 generals are the common opponents of all the students. Only by defeating them can you win. Once victorious, all students holding Spirit Light will be able to receive the most coveted rewards of the hunting war. Su Xian paused, and a glint of light appeared in her beautiful eyes. That would be the Spirit Light Enlightenment. Upon hearing this, Mu Chen clearly saw that even the cold and indifferently Qing had a slight flush of enthusiasm pass over her delicate face. However, he could only smile wryly in confusion. The so-called Spirit Light is a special substance in the hunting ground, formed by the purest spiritual energy of heaven and earth. When we enter the hunting ground, our goal will be to capture Spirit Light. The more Spirit Light we obtain, the greater the benefits we will receive during the Spirit Light Enlightenment. Su Xian saw the confused expression on Mu Chen's face and understood that he was unfamiliar with this concept. She lightly smiled and said, "You've participated in the spiritual road, so you should know about the spiritual road enlightenment, right?" Actually, the Spirit Light Enlightenment is quite similar to the spiritual road enlightenment. It can greatly stimulate one's potential and enhance one's strength. Oh! Mu Chen was suddenly enlightened, and then his heart shook slightly. No wonder the hunting war would expose the hidden strengths of so many students, as there were such benefits involved. He had participated in the spiritual road and knew how important the spiritual road enlightenment was. If not for his various methods, it would have been hard for him to catch up with the geniuses who received the king-level rating in the spiritual road. If the Spirit Light Enlightenment in the hunting war had similar effects, then it would indeed be something they couldn't afford to miss. Of course, to receive the Spirit Light Enlightenment, you must defeat the final guardians. That's why I said that the 3 generals of Xingdian will be our opponents. Su Xian smiled gently. Otherwise, why would I remind Chen Songxing to come back for the hunting war? Isn't that just giving myself a tough opponent? Right? Usually there's only 1 guardian, but this time there are 3, and they are the 3 most famous generals of Xingdian. These 3 tough people, probably only Chen Songxing and Li Xiantong can handle them, Guxiong sighed. Mu Chen nodded slightly. Chen Songxing and Li Xiantong were currently the 2 strongest people in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. If these 2 powerhouses were absent, then in this hunting war, their side would probably gain little advantage. Alright, that should be enough. Let's go to North Song City to report, obtain the Yuan Yin, and then head back to the academy directly. Mu Chen and the others nodded upon hearing the words. Several of them moved swiftly, soaring through the vast sky, entering the enormous North Song City. They didn't linger long in North Song City. After notifying the estate, they successfully obtained the Yuan Yin and then, within just 2 hours, had crossed through the expansive outskirts of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Soon after, the boundless and ever-vibrant Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy appeared before their eyes. The group gazed at the endless expanse of the academy and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, a smile appearing on their faces. The task was finally completed. Above the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, several flashes of light streaked across the sky. They looked down at the vast training grounds below, and then at the passing streaks of light. The tension that had gripped their hearts gradually began to ease. Only after enduring the constant dangers could they truly appreciate the gentle and reassuring atmosphere of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Here, they could completely relax their worries, because as long as they were still students of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, they would receive the perfect protection of this colossal institution. Chen and his group flew into the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, heading straight towards the direction of the mission hall. Now that they had completed their task, they had to first report it and receive the rewards they had earned. The mission hall was located in the northwest corner of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, nestled amidst a cluster of mountains. A grand hall stood tall there, surrounded by a bustling crowd, with people coming and going outside the hall. The mission hall was also a popular spot within the academy. However, only students with certain abilities could come here to take on missions. Tasks that required traveling to the North Song continent were especially strict in terms of strength requirements. Under Su Xian's guidance, Chen and his companions landed before the mission hall and casually walked inside. Inside the mission hall, it was exceptionally bright and spacious. Numerous crystal screens were placed around the hall, displaying a dense array of missions. Chen's gaze casually swept over the screens and then fixed on the center of the hall. There, a blood-red crystal pillar stood, engraved with some blood-curdling words. The shocking color made the crystal pillar the most eye-catching thing in the vast hall, and every student who came here would look at the crimson pillar with a mix of anger and fear, staring at the names that seemed to be made of blood. Reward list. Chen's eyes narrowed slightly as 3 blood-red characters at the top of the crystal pillar flashed with a piercing glow. Clearly, this was the reward list that he had heard so much about on his journey to the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. As Chen looked at the top of the crystal pillar, familiar names immediately caught his eye. First on the reward list, Tian, with a reward of 10 million Lingji, a top-grade spiritual artifact, and a divine-level spiritual technique. Second on the reward list, Zi, with a reward of 8 million Lingji and a divine-level spiritual technique. Third on the reward list, Blood Dragon Man Gu, with a reward of 5 million Lingji. Fourth on the reward list, Ghost Bear, with a reward of 3 million Lingji. The crimson characters displayed the danger associated with these names, and the hefty rewards made people's eyelids twitch. However, everyone understood that while the rewards were high, not everyone was qualified to claim them. Tian's reward has actually reached 10 million Lingji. Chen couldn't help but exclaim. 10 million. That amount could almost buy anything, and it was enough to purchase 2 portions of North Abyss Dragon Kuan's essence blood. His reward has yet to be claimed by anyone. Su Xian smiled helplessly and said, a person like that is no longer someone we students can handle. Even someone as powerful as Shun Songxing can only deal with Zi. Chen nodded slightly. He had met Zi and was well aware of the latter's formidable strength, but Tian was even stronger than him. From his guess, that guy had probably already reached the heaven-reaching stage. The power of the heaven-reaching stage could even earn one the status of an elder in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Let's go. We'll turn in the mission. Also, since the Dragon Demon Palace appeared during this mission, we must report this to the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Su Xian spoke softly before gracefully stepping forward, heading straight toward the mission hall. In the hall, a massive crystal screen loomed, where numerous students came and went, waiting to submit their missions. However, it was clear that different missions received different levels of treatment. Su Xian walked directly to the very center of the massive crystal screen, where an elderly man with graying hair was snoring thunderously in deep sleep. His ear-splitting snores echoed through the hall, yet no student dared to disturb him. Su Xian chuckled at the sight, stepped forward and gently tugged at the old man's beard. "Ah, who?" The elderly man, startled from his dream, instantly jumped up, clutching his beard with an angry roar. But when he saw Su Xian's smiling face, he snorted, "It's you again, girl. If you're here to submit a mission, just do it properly. Why must you always be so rough with this old man? You're always slacking off. If you ask me, I should just pluck all your beard off." Xun'er stepped forward with a mischievous pout. "You two little troublemakers." Elder Lu rolled his eyes helplessly, then swept his gaze over them before asking, "Did you complete that heavenly rank mission? So soon. Wait, who's this kid at the heaven-merging stage?" His gaze suddenly locked onto Mu Chun, eyes narrowing with a serious expression. "Girl, you actually brought this kid to North Tsang continent? Are you out of your mind? What if something had gone wrong? Don't tell me. One of you took a liking to him?" His initial words were still proper, but as he reached the end, his tone took a teasing turn, instantly making Su Xian and Xun'er's faces flush crimson. "You old fool. What nonsense are you spouting?" Xun'er's face was burning. "Heh." Elder Lu let out a chuckle. "Just joking. But rules are rules. This kid's reward will be cut in half. And don't glare at me. I'm already being generous because we're acquaintances. Otherwise, he wouldn't be getting a single Lingji." Mu Chun was dumbfounded. Half of his Lingji reward was gone? Since they were at the area designated for heavenly rank missions, Su Xian and her group naturally drew a lot of attention upon arrival. The Su sisters were well known in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. So many students easily recognized them. Elder Lu's remark caused a stir, and soon, many curious gazes fell on Mu Chun. A mere heaven-merging stage kid. How was he even allowed on a heavenly rank mission? Why would Su Xian bring him along? Could there really be something between them? "Hey, old man, stop talking nonsense. According to the intelligence we received, the mission was supposed to involve only an ordinary heaven-reaching spirit vault. But when we arrived at White Dragon Hill, we found that it was actually a supreme spirit vault. And what's wrong with Mu Chun being at the heaven-merging stage? That White Dragon City Lord by Xian, he was taken down by him. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't have made it back alive." Xun'er was furious at Elder Lu for cutting Mu Chun's reward and immediately snapped at him. The hall instantly fell silent. Even Elder Lu was briefly stunned, struggling to process the shocking information in Xun'er's words. A supreme spirit vault? This kid killed the White Dragon City Lord? How is that possible? I've taken on missions at White Dragon Hill before. That City Lord was at the Heaven Transformation stage. That must be a lie. A few students exchanged incredulous glances and whispered among themselves. A supreme spirit vault? Elder Lu finally regained his composure, his face showing surprise. That's impossible. Our intelligence clearly stated it was just an ordinary heaven-reaching spirit vault. Nonsense. That supreme spirit vault belonged to the White Dragon Supreme, who perished hundreds of years ago. And by Xian, the so-called City Lord, was actually a pawn secretly placed by the Dragon Demon Palace. Also, they could claim the White Dragon Supreme's treasure. Xun'er huffed. The White Dragon Supreme? The Dragon Demon Palace? Are you serious? At these names, Elder Lu's expression finally changed. He shot to his feet, his face full of shock and doubt. Would I lie about something like this? Even that bastard demon dragon child showed up in the end. If senior brother Chen Songxing hadn't arrived in time, we'd all be dead. Xun'er's eyes flared with anger. We risked our lives out there. This whole mess happened because your intelligence was inaccurate. If not for Mu Chun, none of us would have made it back. You dare to cut his reward? I won't let you. Demon dragon child? The students who had been eavesdropping suddenly shuddered, their eyes filled with horror. Su Xian's group had actually encountered Demon Dragon Child. Even Elder Lu's casual demeanor disappeared entirely. He now wore a grave expression, all traces of laziness gone. He studied Mu Chun with newfound curiosity before turning to Su Xian. Is what she said true? Yes. Every word Linger said is the truth. Elder Lu, if you don't believe us, you can ask Wuxiong and Li Qing, or wait until senior brother Chen Songxing returns and confirm with him, Su Xian said calmly. Bai Xian was a member of the Dragon Demon Palace, and he had already reached the late stage of the Heaven Transformation stage. And yes, Mu Chen was the one who killed him. On the side, Li Qing and Guo Xiong also nodded heavily. The surroundings were quiet, and even Elder Lu was staring at Mu Chen in disbelief. How could he, with the strength of the heaven-merging stage, have killed Bai Xian, who was at the late stage of the transformation sky realm? How was that possible? Mu Chen felt uneasy under the intense gazes and helplessly said, "Elder Lu, the reason I was able to kill Bai Xian is because of some special methods. It's not a reflection of my true strength." Upon hearing this, a wave of shock rippled through the crowd. They didn't care what methods Mu Chen used. All they knew was that this young man, who looked like he was only at the early stage of the heaven-merging realm, had actually killed a powerful figure at the late stage of the transformation sky realm. The late stage of the transformation sky realm? Among the students of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, how many could reach such a level? Elder Lu's gaze lingered on Mu Chen for a while before slowly retracting. He extended his dry hand. "Give me your Lingji plates. The reward will be as usual, but the specific details of this mission need to be clarified. I must report to the Elder Council." As Mu Chen and his group walked out of the mission hall, they looked at the azure sky and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. With the mission completed and handed over, they had finally successfully completed their task. "Thanks for everything earlier," Mu Chen said, holding the Lingji plate with a smile on his face. 1.5 million Lingji, this was the largest amount he had earned since entering the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Now, he was one step closer to obtaining the bloodline of the North Abyss Dragon Xun'er. This mission entirely relied on your abilities to succeed. If the reward was halved, that would be unfair, Su Xian said with a slight smile. The four others nodded in agreement. If it weren't for Mu Chen, they might not have even made it back alive, let alone complete the mission. Mu Chen. Li Qing suddenly spoke. She raised her delicate hand, and the Lingji plate appeared. With a flick of her jade finger, a brilliant light shot out from the plate. This was the deal. You helped me obtain the Dragon Xiao spirit ring. So this mission's reward is yours, she said, looking at Mu Chen with a calm expression. Mu Chen looked at her and smiled helplessly. Li Qing was cold and stubborn. Once she made a decision, it was hard to change. He could only nod and accept the light, which immediately transformed into over 3 million Lingji. Haha, and don't forget mine, Guo Xiong chimed in with a grin. He also flicked his hand, sending a light from his Lingji plate. After Mu Chen killed Bai Xian, he didn't take the high-grade spiritual weapon Blood Spear but handed it to Guo Xiong instead. Mu Chen thought that he had already gained huge benefits from the trip to White Dragon Hill, having obtained the White Dragon Spirit Pearl and suppressed the so-called Ancient Fierce Artifact in his Qi. Thus, Mu Chen was the one who benefited the most from this mission. Looking at the light coming from Guo Xiong's plate, Mu Chen couldn't help but smile bitterly. But he couldn't openly mention the great Shumi demon pillar inside him. He had to accept the reward for now since he was indeed in need of Lingji. It seemed that he would have to remember this favor. Mu Chen, are you in a hurry to use Lingji? Su Ling'er asked as she noticed Mu Chen accepting Guo Xiong's reward. She held her own Lingji plate delicately, seemingly considering helping him. I do need a large amount of Lingji, but everyone contributed to this mission. I'll accept the goodwill from Senior Li Qing and Senior Guo Xiong. I'll repay them when I have the chance. As for you guys, please don't make me feel indebted, Mu Chen said with a helpless smile. Though he really wanted to gather enough Lingji to buy the bloodline of the North Abyss Dragon Xun'er, if everyone kept giving him their rewards, he would really feel overwhelmed. Seeing Mu Chen's firm expression, Su Ling'er could only murmur, "All right, but if you do need Lingji in the future, you can always come borrow some from me." Mu Chen smiled and nodded, then cupped his hands toward them. Since the mission is complete, I'll head back to the freshman district now. It had been nearly half a month since he last saw Luoli, and he was already missing her terribly. He couldn't wait to appear in front of her and break through those tranquil eyes, embracing the shy girl in his arms. All right, see you later. Mu Chen saw this and stopped hesitating. He turned around and quickly sped off in the direction of the new student district. After several minutes, his speed slowed down, and the familiar scene was now clearly before his eyes. In the plaza by the clear lake in the new student district, many members of the Falling God Assembly were meditating in silence. Among them were Zhou and Yi Qingling. Whoosh! A sudden sound of wind breaking in the air caused many people in the plaza to open their eyes. They immediately saw a figure descending, appearing in the middle of the plaza. It's Boss Mu Chen. Boss Mu Chen is back. The new students, upon seeing the figure, immediately exclaimed, and the silence was broken. Everyone stood up, their eyes filled with joy. Mu Chen? Zhou and Yi Qingling also opened their eyes. When they saw Mu Chen appear in the plaza, they froze for a moment, then joy filled their faces. You finally returned, Zhou said, quickly walking up with a smile. Mu Chen smiled back, then glanced around and asked, Where's Luoli? Upon hearing Mu Chen mention Luoli, Zhou and the others slightly stiffened, and the members of the Falling God Assembly fell silent for a moment. What's going on? Mu Chen asked, frowning. Luoli is recovering from her injuries in your small pavilion, Zhou said, his words hesitant. Recovering from injuries? Mu Chen's face darkened instantly. He stared at Zhou, his voice turning icy. What exactly happened? Yi Qingling smiled bitterly from the side. A lot has happened at the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy during the half-month you were gone. Yang Hong disbanded the Flying Dragon Assembly and led some people to join the Demon Gate. The Demon Gate? The Demon Gate is a faction founded by the Crane Demon from the Heavenly Rankings 4th spot. It is highly renowned in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy and incredibly powerful, second only to the Xian sect founded by Li Xintong and the Judgment Group led by Shan Zongxing, Zhou quickly explained. Crane Demon? Mu Chen's eyes gleamed coldly. What does this have to do with Luo Li's injuries? After Yang Hong joined the Demon Gate, our Falling God Assembly started becoming targeted by him. He used to fear you, but now that he's with the Demon Gate, that fear has diminished. Plus, with you not being in the academy, he's become more reckless, sending people to stir up trouble and provoke us. Zhou clenched his teeth, his eyes filled with anger. I couldn't take it anymore, so I fought him. But that guy is really strong now. He's already reached the late stage of the heaven-merging realm, so I couldn't beat him. At this point, a look of shame crossed his face. Not only Zhou was injured, but even other members of the Falling God Assembly who went to confront Yang Hong returned injured, Yi Qingling said, gritting her teeth. At first, we didn't tell Luoli because we didn't want to disturb her training. But then, Yang Hong, for some unknown reason, became more and more outrageous. He even sent a message, forcing us to disband the Falling God Assembly. Mu Chen's expression darkened. When did Yang Hong become so unreasonable? This situation kept escalating until it eventually reached Luo Li's ears, Yi Qingling said with a bitter smile. Then she took action. With her strength, Yang Hong was defeated in just a few moves. But no one expected that after Yang Hong's crushing defeat, the Demon Gate sent a large number of people. They had many powerful experts, and even 3 from the top 20 of the heavenly ranking came. However, Luoli faced them alone. More than 10 Demon Gate experts attacked in succession, but all were defeated by her. These scoundrels, seeing they couldn't win, resorted to a battle of attrition. Luoli fought alone against over 50 Demon Gate experts. In the end, even those 3 top 20 experts from the heavenly ranking were defeated by her. But after this battle, Luoli was injured and has been recovering since. During this time, it seems the Demon Gate is now afraid of her strength and hasn't dared to provoke us again. As for Yang Hong, he has disappeared without a trace, Yi Qingling said, her teeth clenched in evident resentment toward Yang Hong. Mu Chen's eyes narrowed, and a cold, murderous glint flickered in his black pupils. Mu Chen, I'm sorry. We were too weak, and a girl had to step forward for us in this matter, Zhou said, his face flushed. The other young members of the Falling God Assembly lowered their heads in shame. Although Luo Li's single-handed victory against the Demon Gate experts had brought their assembly fame, to them, that fame felt like a double-edged sword. Mu Chen shook his head slightly, his gaze dropping. Yang Hong wouldn't have dared to provoke us on his own. If he's doing this, there must be someone behind him. Someone behind him? Yi Qingling was taken aback. Then her face changed slightly. Only the crane demon can summon the experts of the demon gate. Otherwise, with Yang Hong's reputation, who would pay any attention to him? Mu Chen nodded lightly, his eyes growing even colder. Everything pointed to the crane demon manipulating things in the shadows, but why target the fallen god assembly? Suddenly, Mu Chen clenched his fist, recalling his encounter with the crane demon just before leaving the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. The latter had asked for the task spot that Su Xian had been offered, but Mu Chen had refused. At the time, Mu Chen thought it was just a minor incident, but now he suspected that this may have sparked the crane demon's resentment. This guy's heart was, after all, narrow. What the crane demon had done was probably just an attempt to teach him a lesson. However, he had not anticipated that even after Mu Chen's departure, the fallen god assembly was still under the watch of the formidable Luo Li. Crane demon? Mu Chen's gaze was icy. Mu Chen, what are you going to do? If you want to pick a fight with the demon gate, take us with you. Even if we end up in a mess, we need to let them know that the fallen god assembly is no coward. Zhou Ling gritted his teeth. Mu Chen shook his head slightly, smiling at them. Don't worry, I'll handle this. It wasn't Zhou Ling and the others' fault. Even Mu Chen hadn't expected the crane demon to be this petty. No wonder Su Xian never liked him. What are you going to do? Zhou Ling hurriedly asked. Mu Chen smiled faintly and took a step toward the small pavilion. His calm voice echoed as he spoke. Send a message to the demon gate. 5 days later, Mu Chen will pay them a visit to thank them. Creak. The tightly shut door of the small pavilion was gently pushed open by Mu Chen. He looked at the immaculate room inside before ascending the stairs. Luo Li's door was slightly ajar, so he pushed it open quietly. The serene room emitted a faint, soothing fragrance, which was mesmerizing. Mu Chen's gaze landed on the figure of the girl, lying lazily by the window. She was dressed in thin clothing, her long limbs elegantly stretched out, glowing with a pearly luster. Her slender jade arm curled around her knee, her delicate porcelain-like face resting against it. Her long hair, usually tied up, now cascaded down freely, sparkling like the Milky Way. She seemed to be in a light sleep, exuding a lazy, peaceful aura. Mu Chen gazed at the girl, a deep affection flickering in his eyes, before quietly approaching her. As he got closer, the girl seemed to sense his presence. Her tightly closed eyes suddenly snapped open, and her clear, glass-like gaze flashed with sharp vigilance. However, soon enough, her tense body and the wariness in her eyes quickly dissipated. She stared at the young man standing beside her, then broke into a smile. A trace of uncontrollable joy lingered in her soft voice. You're back? Mu Chen gazed at Luo Li's delicate face. There was a slight pallor there, not severe, but enough to make his heart ache. His anger toward the crane demon flared up sharply. I heard you were injured? Mu Chen stepped forward, his hand touching the smooth, delicate skin of Luo Li's cheek. He frowned. No, I'm fine. Luo Li shrank slightly from his cold touch, then smiled and shook her head. You're lying to me? Mu Chen narrowed his eyes. One arm went around her slender waist, while the other slid beneath her knees, lifting her effortlessly into his embrace. Ah! Luo Li let out a soft cry, her jade arm instinctively wrapping around Mu Chen's neck. She gave him a playful, slightly scolding look, her lips pursing. You just got back and you're already bullying me. Mu Chen gazed at the girl in his arms, her lips pouting in a playful manner, and his heart stirred. It was incredibly rare for the usually composed and calm Luo Li to show such a girlish side. Luo Li, noticing Mu Chen's intense gaze on her slightly pouting lips, flushed deeply. She shifted uncomfortably and lightly scolded him. What do you want? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Don't you know? Mu Chen teased with a smile. Before Luo Li could react, he bent down and captured the rosy flush of her lips. He savored the sweet and fragrant taste. Luo Li stiffened at his sudden move, but gradually relaxed, her jade arm still draped around his neck, allowing him to continue. Mu Chen enjoyed the moment for a while, before finally letting go of the breathless girl in his arms. Looking at her flushed face, he couldn't help but laugh. Delicious. Scoundrel, don't even think about it. Luo Li's face flushed red, clearly embarrassed and angry at his domineering words. Still looking for trouble? Mu Chen grinned maliciously, tightening his hold on the girl in his arms. Luo Li glared at him and, fuming, turned her head away. Mu Chen smiled warmly. Sitting on Luo Li's soft bed, he refused to loosen his hold on her. He then gazed at her cheek, furrowing his brow. How bad is the injury? Luo Li shook her head lightly and said, It's nothing serious. Just too much energy spent. Although they had the numbers, they wouldn't have gotten the better of me if it came to a real fight. The Demon Gate people are quite tough. It wasn't supposed to go like this, but their leader, the Crane Demon, is tricky. With you not here, no matter how I fight, I still have to keep some energy in reserve to guard against him. Mu Chen didn't have a clear understanding of Luo Li's strength, but from her ability to handle dozens of Demon Gate elites on her own, her power was certainly at the Heaven transformation stage. However, since the Crane Demon never made a move, Luo Li had to stay cautious, which is why she sustained some injuries from their powerful enemies. The Crane Demon. Mu Chen's black eyes glinted coldly, then he gave a faint smile. Since this guy doesn't act like a human, I won't treat him like one. What are you going to do? Luo Li's clear eyes flickered with concern. The Demon Gate and Crane Demon were no ordinary threats. If they dare to bully my woman, then if I keep quiet about it, what kind of man would I be? Mu Chen snorted coldly. Luo Li's face turned slightly red, and she couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. But the corners of her lips lifted in a soft smile. I'll go with you, Luo Li said gently. The Crane Demon was quite powerful, and Mu Chen, on his own, would likely have trouble gaining the upper hand. Mu Chen shook his head, his black eyes flashing with a cold gleam. No need. I'll take care of this. Seeing this, Luo Li knew that Mu Chen had made up his mind. She bumped her small head against his chest in dissatisfaction and then curled up like a kitten in his embrace. Her long eyelashes fluttered and slowly closed as she absorbed the comforting warmth, drifting off to sleep. Mu Chen gazed at the sweetly sleeping girl in his arms and smiled gently. But when he lifted his head again, the cold aura had returned to his handsome face. The Crane Demon didn't want to provoke me, but since he's come to me, he shouldn't blame me for being rude. Late that night, Mu Chen quietly left Luo Li's room and went to the top of the pavilion. He clenched his palm, and the Lingji plate appeared with a soft glow. A translucent light screen emerged, revealing a vast array of items. Mu Chen's gaze was indifferent as his eyes swept over the screen, searching for what he needed. He was clearly upset. It seemed that if he didn't take some action, similar situations might happen again in the future. Since the Crane Demon didn't consider him a threat, Mu Chen was ready to teach him a lesson. Even someone like Bai Xian, a late-stage Heaven transformation expert, had been killed by Mu Chen's hands. A mere Crane Demon didn't deserve to make him feel afraid. Mu Chen's eyes locked onto some items. Then he withdrew the Lingji plate, his figure flashing like a streak of light as he headed toward the Lingji Hall. The next day, after bidding Luo Li farewell, Mu Chen disappeared. Zhouling and the others, following Mu Chen's instructions, delivered the message to the Demon Gate that Mu Chen would visit to thank them in 5 days. The Demon Gate members who received the message were amused. While Mu Chen's performance at the Spirit Battle Arena was unforgettable, and it had earned him recognition at the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, no one believed he could compare to the top 10 of the heavenly ranking. Moreover, the Demon Gate had the Crane Demon, ranked 4th on the heavenly ranking. What could a single Mu Chen possibly do? After mocking the message, they dismissed it and eagerly awaited Mu Chen's visit. Under the watchful eyes of the Demon Gate members, the news quickly spread within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, sparking quite a bit of attention. After all, both Mu Chen and the Demon Gate were far from unknown in the academy at this point. Many people still vividly remembered the newcomer who had withstood 3 moves from Li Shintong without being defeated. However, this time, if Mu Chen intended to stir up trouble with the Demon Gate, the Crane Demon wouldn't likely offer him the same 3-move deal. How would Mu Chen respond then? In just 2 or 3 days, rumors about Mu Chen seeking trouble with the Demon Gate had spread wildly. Yet, what puzzled many was that the supposed protagonist, Mu Chen, had remained silent and hidden, leading some to maliciously speculate that the young man might be cowering in fear. Within the Luotian assembly, Zhou and the others also couldn't find any trace of Mu Chen. But due to their trust in him, they didn't harbor much suspicion. They believed that someone who dared challenge Li Xiantong would never run away at a critical moment. Mu Chen's disappearance had its reasons, and time passed swiftly amidst these suspicions. The headquarters of the Demon Gate was located to the north of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, in an area filled with clustered pavilions. This region was entirely populated by Demon Gate members and could be considered their internal domain. At this moment, inside the largest pavilion at the heart of the Demon Gate, many figures gathered in the hall. At the head of the hall, the crane demon casually held a teacup. To his right, Yang Hong stood, surrounded by other core members of the Demon Gate. "Boss, tomorrow will be the 5th day. What's Mu Chen up to? Why hasn't he shown up yet?" A lean man inquired in a low voice. His name was Chen, and he was relatively well known in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, ranking 18th on the heavenly ranking with strength at the early stage of the Heaven Transformation realm. However, he had been defeated by Luo Li that day. The others nearby nodded slightly. As time passed, they too felt increasingly confused. Was Mu Chen really hiding? The crane demon merely smiled faintly. Holding the teacup, he looked down at the steaming tea, his gaze fixed as wisps of white mist rose. Suddenly, the teacup froze, and with a slight motion of his hand, it shattered into powder, scattering down. What's there to speculate? Tomorrow will tell. He's just a newcomer who survived 3 moves from Li Xiantong. I'm curious to see what he's actually capable of. He lifted his head slightly, his eyes filled with a mocking sneer. As long as he dares to show up, I'll make him realize that in this Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, he's not qualified to be bold in front of the Demon Gate. The Demon Gate headquarters today was livelier than usual. Outside the pavilions, the skies and rooftops were filled with figures. In the distance, the sounds of wind cutting through the air grew louder, as many students rushed toward the area. In the past 5 days, news of the conflict between Mu Chen and the Demon Gate had spread like wildfire. Mu Chen had gained significant notoriety within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, especially after his shocking encounter with Li Xiantong. That moment had left a lasting impression on many senior students, making them remember the name of this unfamiliar newcomer. Though Mu Chen's fame had grown, in many people's eyes, there was still a considerable gap between him and true powerhouses like the Crane Demon. The 3-move deal proved Mu Chen's potential and talent, but it didn't reflect his true strength. Once they truly fought, without the restriction of the 3 moves, Mu Chen would undoubtedly be no match for someone like Li Xiantong. The Crane Demon, though ranked 4th on the heavenly ranking, was undeniably powerful. Many believed that he had the ability to break into the top 3, but had simply chosen to bide his time. Whether that was true or not, it was enough to prove the Crane Demon's strength. If Mu Chen wanted to confront the Demon Gate now, it certainly wouldn't be an easy feat. In front of the Demon Gate headquarters, a spacious square was crowded with hundreds of Demon Gate members. They laughed and chatted, showing no sign of tension, only eager anticipation and mockery. In front of the headquarters, the Crane Demon sat quietly in the Grand Master chair. His expression was unreadable, but a fleeting glimmer of indifference passed through his slightly raised eyes. Behind him, several core members of the Demon Gate, including Chen, were present. Yang Hong stood off to the side. He no longer displayed the arrogance of his past. Although his talent was not weak, he was still a newcomer and knew he could not compare to a figure like the Crane Demon. Thus, he wisely chose to align himself with the Demon Gate. With the Demon Gate's influence within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, he could easily escape the shadow of Mu Chen. As long as he continued to work hard, he would surpass Mu Chen once again in the future. A fierce fire flashed in Yang Hong's eyes. He was holding back for now, but one day, he would stand at the top of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. At that time, whether it was Mu Chen or the Crane Demon, he would step on them. Outside the square, in midair, numerous students had gathered to watch. They couldn't help but marvel at the Demon Gate's display of strength. Clearly, all the core experts of the Demon Gate were present, and it was obvious they were waiting for Mu Chen to show up. As the students looked on, whispers spread among the crowd. Is the demon gate trying to intimidate Mu Chen into not showing up? TSK. Among them, the crane demon ranks 4th on the heavenly ranking, and Chen Ho and the others are in the top 20. Several others are in the top 50. The strength of the demon gate is truly formidable. Looks like Mu Chen has finally met his match. That guy is always causing trouble. I heard he had a conflict with Su Huang before, and now he's clashing with the crane demon. Seems like the once smooth-sailing kid is in for a rough time now. From the sounds around them, it was clear that the students believed the outcome of today's event was already decided. On top of a nearby building, a group of people observed the square. The leader was Su Huang, and beside him, Su Qingqing swept her eyes around and sneered, Mu Chen really can't stay out of trouble. After only a short period of peace, he's clashing with the demon gate. Does he really think the crane demon is someone he can handle? Big brother, do you think he'll really show up? Su Qingqing looked at Su Huang. Su Huang frowned slightly, his eyes scanning the surroundings. He still hadn't seen Mu Chen, but he calmly replied, Mu Chen will definitely appear. Don't underestimate him. If given another year, he'll have a seat in the top 5 of the heavenly ranking. Su Qingqing snorted in dissatisfaction. That guy in the top 5 of the heavenly ranking? Impossible. His 3 moves against Li Shintong couldn't even be considered a real fight. He will show up, but whether he can handle the current situation is another story. Su Huang looked again at the gathering of Demon Gate experts. He truly didn't understand what Mu Chen could possibly do in the face of such a strong lineup. Not far from them, Su Xian, Su Ling'er, Li Qing, and others had also arrived, clearly hearing the news and coming to witness the event. Sister, why hasn't Mu Chen shown up yet? Su Ling'er kept looking around, growing increasingly anxious. This guy really can't stay calm. This time, the crane demon won't offer him the 3 moves agreement. It's said that this incident was caused by the crane demon. After Mu Chen left, he sent people to stir up trouble at the Luotian Assembly, but in the end, their people were all defeated by Luoli of the Luotian Assembly. I heard Luoli was also injured, Guoxiong explained. Mu Chen and the crane demon didn't have any previous interactions, so it seems this grudge stems from the recent mission quota. That's why the crane demon holds a grudge against him. Li Qing, standing nearby, furrowed her brow, clearly showing no good feelings toward the crane demon. Su Xian nodded slightly. She had long known that the crane demon had a narrow mind, but she hadn't expected him to hold a grudge over such a small matter. Sister, if anything happens, you have to step in and help Mu Chen, Su Ling'er said, indignant. Su Xian lightly nodded. I do bear some responsibility in this matter, so I won't just sit by and let the crane demon bully him. But don't underestimate Mu Chen. He's not one to act without reason. If he's doing this, he must have some confidence. A person who isn't afraid even in the face of the demon dragon child. Do you really think the crane demon can put pressure on him? Li Qing stood to the side. Guoxiong wholeheartedly agreed. After working together on missions for some time, they had come to understand just how many astonishing abilities that young man possessed. As for today's events, the outcome was still uncertain. The Luotian Assembly has arrived. As they spoke, a commotion suddenly arose in the surrounding sky. Countless gazes instantly shifted toward a grand avenue beyond the square. There, hundreds of figures surged forward. Most of them were new students, and while they felt somewhat overwhelmed by the situation, they still gritted their teeth and pressed on. At the forefront was a girl dressed in an inky black robe. Her face was exquisitely beautiful, and her clear, glass-like eyes were as serene as a deep pool. Her cascading hair shimmered like a silver river, flowing down to her slender waist. Almost every gaze in the crowd converged on the black-robed girl, each flickering with admiration. So that's Luoli? She truly is an exceptional girl. No wonder even Mu Chen was captivated. Su Xian observed the extraordinary young woman and couldn't help but softly praise her. Beside her, Su Ling'er pouted but had to admit that the girl before her was indeed striking. Not just in appearance, but in that otherworldly serenity she exuded. Under Luo Li's lead, the vast group of Luotian Assembly members stepped into the massive square. Seeing Luo Li, Chen Ho and the others behind Crane Demon instinctively averted their gazes. Their previous round-robin battle had already been humiliating, and despite their efforts, they had never gained the upper hand. That confrontation had made them realize that among the new students, the most formidable wasn't Mu Chen. It was this stunning yet unassuming girl. Crane Demon's eyes locked onto Luo Li. Her presence and beauty made his expression waver slightly. In the past, the most outstanding girl in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy had been Su Xian. But now, the girl before him surpassed even her. That brat sure is lucky. Crane Demon narrowed his eyes, scanning the crowd before speaking indifferently. Where's Mu Chen? Didn't he send word that he would personally come to challenge me? Now that the time has come, why is he hiding like a turtle? If he said he would come, then he will. You just need to wait, Luo Li replied, her crisp voice steady and devoid of emotion. Wait? How arrogant. Who does he think he is, expecting my demon gate to wait for him? Crane Demon sneered in anger. He considered his own status. How could someone like Mu Chen be worthy of making him wait? Luo Li's long lashes lowered slightly as she said, if waiting is too tiresome for you, I can entertain you in the meantime. But be careful not to lose your 4th place ranking on the heavenly ranking. An uproar erupted across the square as countless shocked gazes turned to the black-robed girl. No one had expected such words from someone so breathtaking. She does sound a bit like Mu Chen, Su Xian chuckled. Amidst the stunned murmurs, Crane Demon's expression darkened. Slowly rising to his feet, he said coldly, such bold words. If you want to take my ranking, let's see if you have what it takes. As his voice fell, a powerful surge of spiritual energy burst forth from his body, sweeping out like an overwhelming tide. Clearly, Luo Li's words had angered him. Behind Luo Li, Yi Qingling and the others tensed, their expressions shifting. Yet Luo Li's eyes remained calm. Instead of retreating, she took a graceful step forward, ready to make her move. I'll handle this. Just as Luo Li was about to act, a clear and confident voice suddenly echoed across the square, drawing gasps of astonishment. Every gaze snapped toward the source of the voice. Atop a towering building beyond the square, a young man sat silently, as if he had been there all along.